The summer air in London was thick, sunlight clinging to the iron fences of Buckingham Palace like golden dust. Tourists pressed their bodies to the railings, cameras clicked, laughter, chatter, and flashes of phone lights buzzed like a hive. But Corporal Isaac Dunn, face carved in stone, didn't flinch. He stood motionless in full ceremonial uniform, crimson tunic, jet black trousers, gleaming boots. The bearskin hat made him taller, more intimidating. He was a British royal guard, and royal guards do not speak. Not to tourists, not to friends, not even to God himself if he stands behind the rope. That was what his old commanding officer used to say, and Isaac took it seriously. He hadn't spoken on post in 7 years, not once. Not when a stag party from Manchester mocked his accent, not when a French teenager tried to take a selfie wrapped around his rifle, not even when a child sneezed and said, "Bless me, soldier." But that afternoon, that single whisper, soft, cracked, and barely audible, would break him in half. It started with a ripple in the crowd, not a shout, not a commotion, just a stillness, oddly out of place, like someone had turned down the volume for a moment. Then he saw her. A girl, no older than 9. Thin arms, mismatched sandals, yellow sundress that had clearly seen better days. She wasn't holding a phone. She wasn't laughing. She was staring right at him, eyes wide, brown, and rimmed in red. She wasn't lost in the crowd. She was dropped in it, like someone had abandoned a puzzle piece in the wrong box. Corporal Dunn held formation, no movement, no emotion, but his chest tightened. Something was wrong. She stepped closer. Not enough to breach the barrier, but enough for her to look up, directly into his face. Then, in the smallest voice a child could manage through fear, she said, "Please, help my brother." Dunn's spine locked. The words struck like thunder inside his ribcage, even though the wind nearly stole them away. No one around her heard it. Not the couple with the guidebook, not the teenagers filming TikToks. But he did. Every syllable. Help my brother. Guards aren't allowed to speak. Guards aren't allowed to move. Guards aren't allowed to feel. But he did. His training screamed, "Ignore it. Remain still." But his eyes darted, barely perceptible, scanning the crowd. No parents with her, no guardians nearby. Just her and a threadbare stuffed rabbit clenched in one fist. Then, as he watched, she turned back toward the fountain, where a boy, maybe 12, sat slumped against the base. At first it looked like he was sleeping, but Dunn knew the signs. Loose posture, pale skin, chest barely rising. The boy wasn't asleep. He was in medical distress, and the girl had come to the one person in red she thought would protect her. For a moment, Dunn wasn't in London. He was back in Kandahar, 2012. A boy, a bomb, a sandstorm, a child laying in the dirt bleeding out while his sister screamed in a language he couldn't understand. He had knelt down then. He had saved that boy. But that was war. This was London. Ceremony, cameras, order. And yet, wasn't this also war? A war of silence, of image, of choosing rules over right. He exhaled, a single breath. Then, he did the unthinkable. Without a word, Corporal Isaac Dunn broke formation. He stepped down from his post and walked directly toward the fountain. The crowd gasped. Phones flew up. A guard moving was rare. A guard abandoning post? Unheard of. But Isaac didn't care. He dropped to one knee beside the boy, checked his pulse. Faint, rapid, lips tinted blue, signs of diabetic shock. He looked up at a stunned tourist. "Call an ambulance, now!" And just like that, he spoke. 7 years of silence shattered in 6 words.
By the time the ambulance arrived, dozens of phones had captured the moment. A British Royal Guard kneeling, speaking, acting. Paramedics rushed in. The boy, later identified as Marcus Bennett, age 12, was stabilized on scene, his blood sugar critically low. Isaac stayed kneeling until they lifted Marcus onto a stretcher. Then he stood, but not to return to post. A man in plain clothes had stepped through the crowd. "Corporal Dunn, sir, you need to come with me." The room was plain, cold, no windows, the kind of place built to strip a man of any sense of ceremony. Major Ellen Rowe, stoic, sharp-jawed, known for loving two things, regulation and silence, took a seat across from him. "Do you know what you've done?" "Yes, ma'am." "And why did you break post?" "Because a child asked for help." She stared. "You know this isn't our job. We are symbols, not responders." Isaac didn't flinch. "Then we need better symbols." What no one knew yet was that a teacher from Leeds had uploaded the moment. The video, captioned "Guard Moves to Save a Child," racked up 4 million views in under 12 hours. Comments flooded in. "That's not just a soldier. That's a human being." She whispered. He heard. "Break the silence. Be like him." Hashtags trended. Talk shows debated. The palace released a brief, carefully worded statement. "The Crown is reviewing the matter internally." Her name was Lily. She wore the same yellow dress in every news clip. But now, sitting across from a social worker, she was calm. "He doesn't eat sometimes," she said softly, "because he gives the food to me." Marcus, it turned out, had been caring for his sister alone for weeks. Their mother, addicted and missing. Their father, unknown. No formal records. No guardianship. They had come to Buckingham Palace because Lily believed someone in red would help. "I saw him stand still," she told the woman. "That means he's really strong." Major Rowe faced a dilemma. Public support for Dunn was overwhelming. Yet, rules had been broken. "What happens when every guard acts on instinct?" she asked her senior aide. "What happens when ceremony becomes chaos?" But even she couldn't ignore the footage. Not the silence of Dunn, not the whisper of the girl, not the line that had been crossed, with compassion, not defiance. "We can't punish him," her aide said carefully, "not without punishing what's left of our humanity." 10 days later, in a closed-door meeting, Isaac Dunn was given a quiet commendation. "For conduct unbecoming of silence," the citation read. No cameras, no salute, just a silver pin, slipped into his hand by a fellow veteran who whispered, "We noticed." But to Isaac, none of that mattered. What mattered was that Marcus had recovered, and Lily had asked if she could draw him something. 2 days after his return to duty, Isaac found something at the palace gates, a child's envelope. Inside, a crayon drawing. A red figure standing tall beside a girl in yellow and a boy with a juice box. Underneath it, in shaky handwriting, "You moved once. That was enough." Lily.
1 month later. The sun hung high over Buckingham Palace, bathing the gates in light, and there he stood again, Corporal Isaac Dunn. Unmoving, unblinking. The world had spun, headlines had faded, but his duty hadn't changed. Tourists gathered, children waved. Some recognized him, the guard who broke silence. Some called his name. He didn't react, but he saw them, especially the little girl in yellow, standing by the railing again. Lily was back, this time with a proper jacket, new shoes, and foster parents standing proudly behind her. She waved, not to get attention, just to say, "I see you." And then, without warning, she shouted, "Are you allowed to smile now?" The crowd chuckled. A few even cheered. Isaac didn't move, but behind the stoic mask, something cracked, and one corner of his lip twitched. It wasn't protocol, but it was permission, just this once. Word of Dunn's action had made it all the way to the floor of Parliament. A Conservative MP called it an unfortunate breach of conduct, but an opposition leader stood and read Lily's own words. He moved once. That was enough. There was silence in the chamber, then applause, and then, quietly, a bill was proposed. The Dunn Amendment. A clause allowing ceremonial guards to override silence only in cases of immediate harm to a child. Weeks passed. Then a letter arrived, not from the palace, from Marcus, handwritten, shaky but strong. Inside, a drawing. This time he had made it. It showed Isaac standing tall, holding a giant shield over Lily and Marcus while dark shapes hovered behind. "I know you don't move a lot," the letter said, "but that day you stood between us and everything's scary." Isaac tucked the drawing behind his medal. "Because some honors don't come in boxes." On a rainy October day, a group of tourists was seen heckling a female guard near the gates. One of them threw a water bottle. Isaac watched. He didn't move, until a small figure in yellow, Lily, stepped forward from the crowd. "Leave her alone," the girl shouted. "They're not statues, they're people." The man laughed. "What do you know, kid?" Lily pointed to Isaac. "That one saved my brother's life without saying a word." The man backed down. Sometimes the loudest voice isn't the strongest. Sometimes it's the smallest one that changes everything. It was Lily who later told the story in a school project. "I whispered, and he heard me." That's why I believe real heroes don't wear capes. They wear red, and they don't move, not even when it's hard. The project was titled, "The Day the Guard Moved." It went viral on its own, because the world was hungry for stories not of strength and shouting, but strength and silence. Years later, Dunn was retired. Quiet life, small village. One morning, the postman handed him a thick envelope. Inside, a printed news article. "New training manual for Royal Guards adds emergency child protocol. The Dunn Directive." He smiled, fully this time. In a drawer beside his medals, he kept two things: a crayon drawing from Lily, a shield sketch from Marcus. He once told a neighbor, "I only moved once, but that was enough." And he was right. Years had passed. Isaac Dunn now lived in quiet retirement in the English countryside. He still rose at dawn, still polished his shoes, still stood straight when he heard the national anthem, but the uniform stayed in a cedar box beneath his bed. Then one morning, a letter arrived. To Mr. Isaac Dunn, from the Ministry of Education. He opened it slowly. Inside, an invitation to speak at Westminster School for Remembrance Day. Not just speak, stand beside Lily and Marcus Bennett. The ceremony was simple. No cameras, no fanfare. Just veterans, students, teachers, and two young people who never forgot. Lily was now a teenager, confident, radiant, wearing a yellow blazer. Marcus stood tall beside her, glasses, honor badge on his chest. They ran up to him as if no years had passed. Lily hugged him tight. "I've wanted to do this for so long." Marcus shook his hand. "Sir, you saved me." Isaac's voice, still deep and calm, finally replied, "You two saved me right back." The hall was silent as Isaac stepped to the podium. He didn't speak like a soldier. He spoke like a man who had learned what true strength looked like. "I stood for years without moving, because that was the rule. But one day someone whispered, and I realized silence shouldn't mean blindness. Ceremony is important, but not more important than compassion. He looked directly at the students. If someone needs help, move, even if the world expects you to stay still. There were tears, even from the headmaster. After the applause faded, Lily stepped up. She held her old drawing in her hands, now faded at the edges. "This is what I gave Corporal Dunn years ago," she said, voice trembling. "But today, I want to give him something new." She pulled out another picture. This time, she had drawn herself and Marcus in red uniforms, standing beside a man holding a little girl's hand. "Because now we protect people too." The entire hall stood in silence. And then, thunderous applause. Back at the palace, a small plaque was added near the gates, carved in stone. "He moved once. That was enough. In honor of Corporal Isaac Dunn." Tourists stopped to read it. Children pointed. Veterans saluted. And every now and then, someone would leave a yellow flower at its base. No one explained why. They just felt it. In his home, Isaac kept a scrapbook. Inside, Lily's first drawing, Marcus's letter, a copy of the Dunn Amendment, the speech program from Westminster School. A small note that read, "We still whisper. And now the world listens." He smiled every time he saw it, not because he was proud, but because he had moved once, and the world had followed. Isaac's story didn't end with a parade. There were no documentaries, no medals on prime time. But years later, when Lily became a teacher and Marcus joined the NHS, they told every student, every patient, one simple truth. You never know who's listening, and you never know what a whisper can do.